Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hello to my fellow KaiNexians. Welcome to our KaiNexus Training Team Office Hours webinar, aka the Banner Rippey Show, episode 19. My name is Ryan Rippey, and I'm the Senior Customer Enablement Manager here at KaiNexus. I am running the show solo dolo again this month. Not to worry. Banna, my sweet Banna, is alive and safe. He had a successful trip in New Zealand, no issues driving on the opposite side of the road. But Banna is actually on site with various other customers in Houston, Texas today. So I will be running the show by myself, but that's okay. We'll have some fun. Just don't make a habit of this, Banna, all right? Tired of having to pick up your slack. So for those of you new to our webinar series, welcome aboard. The way this works is I plan to nerd out here for the next 30 to 45 minutes or so on a KaiNexus topic that I will share with everyone in just a bit. The purpose of these webinars is for us to review the hottest topics and latest and greatest features suggested by you, our customers. So before I reveal our topic for today, let's just quickly go over some housekeeping items. As always, the webinar is being recorded, and we'll go ahead and send out the slides and recording to everyone after the webinar. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, please don't be shy. Feel free to type those into the chat box. I will do my best to answer those in real time if I see them come through. As well as at the very end of the webinar if we have some time left over. All right, let's take a look at our webinar topic for today. 2.3.5 release. So last week we unveiled our latest 2.3.5 release, which included 64 improvements. Round of applause, pat on the back for our amazing development team. Today's webinar, we are going to be taking a deeper dive into some of the top feature enhancements included in that release. So specifically, let's see what we have on the agenda for today. I have kept things pretty basic here. So we are going to start out with some create enhancements. From there, we're going to get into specific item enhancements, which is going to involve a voting take two. I'm very excited to show. From there, we are going to jump into charts, continuing to increase the functionality and uses of charts. So we have some exciting features that I'm excited to share with you guys today. We're going to go over a couple of board enhancements, couple of lists enhancements as well. We're going to spend quite a bit of time actually in the reporting area, continuing to increase the functionality and visualization of our reports. And then from there, I'm actually going to get into a couple of admin enhancements for any of our KaiNexus administrators that are on the line. And I'm also going to touch on some of the Milestones enhancements for those of you who are using our Milestones add-on module. I've gone ahead and put the admin and the Milestones towards the end. So for those of you who want to drop off at that point, I will not take it personally. All right. Exciting Banner Rippey show ahead. So let's jump out of our slide deck here and dive into KaiNexus. All right, so I'm going to be using our showroom environment to showcase those features from the 2.3.5 release. Let's go ahead and sign in, and we're going to start off with some of those create enhancements that I mentioned. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and show is create enhancements. Obviously, we're going to be going to the create button. We now have the ability to change or customize the text that you see in the success pop-up window once you have created a new item in the system. And so what that's going to look like, I'm going to use here in the drop-down an idea as an example. So let's create this idea improvement. I'm going to fill out my description. So let's say maybe we want to move the trash can. I think some of these other fields here are optional, so we should be able to go ahead and just create this idea. So you'll notice when you create the item that you get a success message. And so the success message here is now customizable. Okay, so we'll see success, great idea. Your manager will be in contact with you for next steps. So now what we can do on a per template level is we can customize what that text says, so you can give a little bit of context to users, but also keep them informed of what the next steps are going to be, right? If there's any actions that they need to take, if it's now going to be in a team leader or a manager's hands to take care of that item, this will just provide that further context for them. If you're interested in taking advantage of this feature, please reach out to your customer experience lead. This is something that we would set up on the back end, but you can go ahead and provide that text for us and we can get that in there for you. Now, the next feature I want to talk about is in a few releases ago, we introduced the ability to quickly create another. So you'll see here on the success window for that idea we just created, if I wanted to quickly create another idea without having to go back to the create button, choose the template, et cetera, I can simply select that create another, which will bring me right back to that idea. We have now expanded that functionality to also be included on create buttons that you might have on your widget cards, as well as for nested items from within the work panel. So let's go over exactly what that's going to look like. I'm going to jump over to a dashboard here. So we're going to be looking at this Kata dashboard here in Showroom. And you'll notice as I scroll down that we have a card here for create a new challenge. This is an example of using a widget card on a board where you can use the create button and you can customize the text that shows up on that create button. You can determine what sort of templates will be created when you create that, when you click on that create button, excuse me. You can even take it a step further and have those items automatically nest under a parent project, for example. So in this case, if I wanted to create a new challenge, I could go ahead and select that here on the widget card. This would pull up my challenge form. I would fill out my required information. And now when I create the challenge from here, you'll notice that again, I get that create another. This is also going to show up for nested item lists. So if I was to come into, for example, one of these existing challenges, let's take a look at maybe this increased sales closing percentage. So here within this project, if I want to maybe create another current condition item, I can go ahead and hit the create a current target condition project here. And so once I go ahead and create from here, I'll also again see that create another in the success message. So just reducing the click friction in KaiNexus. If you're not taking advantage of that create button on a widget card, it's a very fancy, useful feature. And so I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your CE lead to understand a little bit more around the use cases that might apply to your organization for that. All right, moving on, we are going to take a look at some item enhancements. Let's actually go back into, let's take a look at that challenge that we created earlier. So one of the things that I want to point out here is you may notice that we have reordered the status picker on projects, improvements, and tasks and charts. We also have made a UI change that I think looks really slick in the system. So if I come up to the new status in the top left here, from the drop down, you'll notice that, yes, we did remove some icons, and while that is kind of a stab in the side there, I think this is the right way to go. So you'll notice that what we've decided to do is just a simple dot, but more importantly, the dot represents the color status that you should be familiar seeing whenever you're looking at these items, for example, in a Kanban view. Right, so if we wanted to plan this new item, we have that light green, activate the dark green, resolve or complete would be a black, defer that dark gray. So all of those colors are going to refer to the status color in KaiNexus. We've also adjusted the order in this drop down so that it follows what that typical life cycle, if you will, of an item in KaiNexus is. So if you're ever using those Kanban views, you'll know that it goes new, planned, active, overdue, resolution submitted, complete, deferred. That's kind of what you're going to see here in that drop down, that same order as well. I kind of like the ticket. I like the look and feel for it. Always a fan of those UI changes in the system, but be on the lookout for that. You'll notice as you hover over each of those statuses, there are tooltips as well that explain what that particular status would be for that item. Now, I'm going to actually, let's jump out of the challenge. I want to take a look at another feature that we've introduced, and that's going to be specifically on a DMAIC project is the example I'm going to use in here. So I'm going to create a quick DMAIC project. Hopefully nothing else is required here. Perfect. We're going to jump into this DMAIC project, and the next thing that I want to talk about is we've now introduced the ability to hide certain team roles on your improvements, projects, tasks, incidents, charts, all of your workflows. So what we'll see specifically here within this DMAIC project, if I go over to the team section, now you'll see champion here. This is actually a facilitator on a project. So one of the things that you can do in KaiNexus, of course, is you can change the names of those roles. That would be a global setting. So if you wanted to use champion as facilitators on all your projects, that would be for all project template types. But what I specifically want to focus on here is if I come in here to edit the team, you'll notice that all I'm working with on this project is champions, AKA facilitators, leaders, and followers. And so what that means is I have removed sponsors and I've also removed participants. So if there are specific team roles that just don't quite fit the team structure of the template you're working on, we can now hide those so that you're not confusing users in the system of, hey, well, who am I supposed to put in as a sponsor or a leader? If you're not using those guys, let's get them out of there, okay? This can be done at a template level. And in addition, as I mentioned, you can go in, you can change the names of those. Now, in terms of what team roles you'll be able to take away, for projects, you'll see that you can take away everything but facilitators and followers. So if you don't have a need for sponsors, leaders, participants, those can all come out. For improvements, incidents, and tasks, you can remove the collaborator team role. For charts, you won't be able to remove anything. Charts, of course, only have authors and followers, so those would stay the same. But this is something that if you want to take advantage of it, please reach out to your CE lead. We can set that up on the back end for you. And if moving forward, let's say, for example, you had items that had sponsors and had participants, but you don't want to use those team roles anymore, any of your previous items are still going to save those team members on the respective team role. So taking those out won't all of a sudden remove those team members that you have in those fields on previous items. All right. I'm super excited to talk about this next feature. We did a take 2 on our voting. We have a number of customers that follow Dr. Alan Robinson's improvement methodology and his recommendations on voting for prioritization. And so if you'll remember, we actually introduced the voting feature in our last release, and we've gotten some really great feedback on that and quickly turned that feedback around and added it right into the product. So let me get over to an example where we can kind of take a look at the full functionality of voting here in KaiNexus. I'm coming to this project here, and so just something to keep in mind, this particular project template type that I'm working with, I have enabled the voting feature here. And so the way that you can quickly identify that is you'll notice there's a panel in the top right corner here for voting, okay? So specifically what we added with this particular enhancement is you now have the ability to vote on items multiple times. You have the ability to see the number of votes in a list and tree view, and you also have the ability to see who has and who has not yet voted. So I'm going to just kind of take a full overview of the voting feature here. Over here in that panel, you can see the total votes that have been cast. If I hover over this 2 here, I can see those votes and who cast those votes. I can see how many specific votes that I have personally cast and the items that I have voted on. You can see how many remaining votes that you have, and you can also see the total remaining votes. So this is everybody who is part of this project team that has yet to vote on their items. Now, getting into a little bit more depth here, if I go ahead and click into the view results, I'm going to get all of that information that we just looked at there on the panel. We can also see the particular items here and how many votes they've received. If you are a sponsor, facilitator, leader on the project, you're also going to have the ability to come in and actually configure the voting structure. So here you can set up what's the maximum votes per person, and to take it a step further, what's the maximum votes per person on a specific item. You'll be able to set that up here. Now, for those of you who are or maybe haven't heard much about the voting feature and checked out our last webinar where we talked about that, voting is set up at a project level. And so based on the project that you have that voting enabled on, any nested items underneath that project, you'll have the ability to vote on, okay? And so what that would look like if I scroll down here in this project is we're gonna see a section for all of our nested improvements. And we can actually see that there's a column in here for the number of votes on those items. So let's take a look at this use tracking technology improvement that actually has 2 votes on it. If I click in here, any of the nested items that are under that voting enabled project are going to have a click to remove vote or a click to vote option here in the top left of the item. So right now it looks like I have voted on this particular improvement and I voted on it twice. I have 1 remaining vote as I hover over this, and I can see that this was the item that I voted on. If I wanted to remove my vote, for example, I could come over here and click to remove the vote. Now I'm starting with a blank slate of votes, and then if I wanted to re-vote on this item again, I could go ahead and select this. And if I'm like, hey, you know what, I want to vote on this twice, I'll go ahead and select that again. So that's the voting functionality when you're voting on those nested items. Typically what organizations will do that are using the voting is maybe you'll set it up so that everybody will vote for a specific week or a specific month. And then one of the things you'll be able to do is you can come back in as that facilitator, sponsor, or leader. And once everybody had voted and you've decided to prioritize a specific item, you may have noticed back here in the configure screen that I can come back in and clear all votes, which will actually have us start from scratch again so that everybody can start to re-vote on those nested items. So we'll see all our votes have been cleared out on those as well. If you're interested in taking advantage of the voting functionality, please reach out to your CE lead. What we'll need to do is, of course, get that turned on to a specific project template. One of the things that I've seen customers do is you can actually take advantage of that create button widget and have people create improvement ideas directly from that widget, and then have those improvement ideas automatically nest in your voting project so that your facilitators can start to see those items and start to manage that voting process. So something to think about. All right, while we're in here, another thing that I want to point out is we have enhanced the PDF experience for items. I know a lot of customers are always looking to extract that information out of KaiNexus, whether it be in Excel or PDF. And with the visualization of PDF, sometimes it could be tricky to get all of your information to be seen on one page, for example. So if you come into the ellipses on your item and want to save to PDF, you'll notice this new scale option. If I hover over this, there's a tooltip here that'll explain how this works. So this is going to allow you to fit more content on a single page, right? That's the goal. So for example, we'll see in the drop-down options that if we were to select 50%, for example, that would double the amount of content that we can fit on the page, right? So if I selected 50% here, I could go ahead and select all the sections I want included, save that, and then what you'll want to do is you'll also want to make sure to select fit to page as an option on your print settings so that you can actually see all of those, see exactly how everything is going to look on that page, right? All right. Let's talk about some chart enhancements now. We have introduced more options for styling your line charts. I'm going to open up a specific example that I have here in KaiNexus. Where's my mouse? All right. Let's go back in. Let's search for this chart that I have set up here. So we got our projects over budget. Oh my, that is a pretty thick line there. So what you're going to be able to do now as part of more options for styling your line charts is you'll have new line widths options, which you can see visualized here. And you're also going to have fill options that you can set up as well. So we can see that blue and the red that are showing up underneath the line. So how this would be set up, if I come in here and edit my chart, maybe I'm setting up a new series, for example. Under appearance, you'll see that you'll have that line width that you can choose from. I believe the maximum here is 10. Yep, so that's probably what we were seeing on that line. In addition to that, you'll see a new checkbox option for fill. So this is where you can choose what that fill color will be underneath your line, and you can also choose the opacity. So how dark do you want that fill to be shown underneath your line as well. So you can use these color fill options to help better illustrate your charts and trends, things of that nature. This functionality, for those of you familiar with the item curve, it makes your line charts look very similar to that. So that was the feedback we got. We know some people like to visualize their data that way, so definitely take advantage of the new styling options for your line charts. Now, speaking to charts, we have also introduced the multi-chart importer. So we know charts are a favorite in KaiNexus for tracking all of your KPIs, and we wanted to give you a more efficient way to update your data. So now you'll have the ability to update multiple charts with a single Excel import. This can be enabled by quality administrators. We're going to take a look. There's a new system role permission on charts called multi-chart import. But let me first pull up an example so we can see how we're going to go ahead and use the multi-chart importer. So I have a chart in KaiNexus. We're going to go ahead and look this up so we can see what it looks like currently. So we have a test chart in here, okay? So we'll see all of our data included in here for our Series A, Series B. Now, I have an Excel doc actually on my desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open up this chart importer. Let me pull this Excel here over so we can see that we have our category, we have our series. This is going to be the updated data that we want to include on the chart. You'll also notice in the tab that we're putting the item ID of our chart. So 2979, if I go ahead and collapse this here, pull my chart back over, you'll see this is chart 2979. So that's going to be important to include that on the tab of your Excel doc. So where is this going to show up? If I come over to the admin area and I go ahead and underneath organization, select multi-chart importer, I have the ability to drop that Excel file in here. So let me go ahead and grab that again, drop that in. We have a completed import, fantastic. Let me just do a quick refresh on my page to be sure that all our data is updated, and we're going to jump right back into that chart that we were just taking a look at earlier. All right, search for that chart. Here we go, 2979, and now we should see some updated data here within that chart. Oh, very nice. That looks pretty good. That was actually set up by our CE Solutions Engineer, Noah Paratori. I actually asked Noah to join me on this webinar today with Banna being gone, but he's a little shy. He was scared. So thanks, Noah, for helping me set up and prep for this. Wish you were here. All right, so a couple more things just talking about the multi-chart importer. In terms of where that permission is going to be accessible, if I come back into the admin section and we check out our roles, I'm just going to create a new role quickly here. As I scroll down, you'll notice in the charts permission that there is a multi-chart import checkbox here. That's going to give you access to that multi-chart import page that we just took a look at. Selecting this would also give that person the ability to view and edit charts so that they would be able to make those updates. You don't necessarily have to have admin permission if you have this multi-chart import permission. What all you would need to do is, if we come back to that multi-chart importer, the specific URL right here would give that person with the permission the access to this page so that they can go ahead and do those updates. So we kept things very simple here on our demonstration. We just had one chart that we were updating. If we were updating multiple charts, you would create additional tabs on that Excel sheet. You would put the item ID of those charts, and then when you went and uploaded it, it'll upload all of those charts in one swoop. Now, if you're asking yourself, well, how do I make sure that I get the format correct so that I can make those updates? Don't forget that within the chart itself, if I come back to that one we were just taking a look at, if I go ahead and edit the chart, you'll see that there is the ability here to upload, download. So if we were uploading, that would be how you can update a individual chart. Obviously with the multi-chart import, we're going to a different screen. But if you're looking to download the chart data so that you have it in the correct format to then re-upload, take advantage of the download here. That'll put it in the right format for you. So all you'll need to do is copy that information, put it all into one Excel doc, update your data, and then boom, you're off to the races. All right, that's enough about charts. Let's talk about boards. Let's talk about lists. I have a couple of small features here that I want to talk about. So we're going to get all the way back to our boards. Now, you'll remember, I'm not sure if it was our last release, the release before that, we introduced gradients. We love gradients. If you are working with your card color headers and text colors as well, now it's very simple for you to come into the layout and you'll be able to quickly come to your primary, secondary header and use this swap option to swap the colors of your background and your text color. So we can see we did a swap there. We have our Discover KaiNexus config. So just makes it easier for you if you want to swap those colors rather than going into the color picker. It also will take the gradient into effect as well. If you're using some Kanban views for any of your item lists, actually let's do that from a card here. One of the things that we've now set up for, let's go into, let's see what we can find. I'm gonna come in here to, let's take a look at the cascading strategy board. So if you're using an item list card, for example, we have our strategic plan safety. If I wanted to go ahead and maybe look at this in a Kanban view, I'm gonna go ahead and switch this over here. Switch this to Kanban. Now, one of the things that you couldn't do before, but now is accessible, is if you wanna reorder the status options, maybe for example, you wanna have all of your overdue items show up at the very left here. If you come back into the ellipses and go back to view, you'll see Kanban, there's a little pencil icon. This is gonna let you come in and actually configure what columns you want shown and in what order you want those columns shown. This can be done at the card level on the board. It can also be, if you wanna set up something different for when you expand that card, you can set that up here as well. But maybe for example, I want to have my overdue items show up first. Maybe I'm not interested in resolution submitted because I'm not using any approval process or anything like that. And then let's go ahead and save this. So now we'll see that the overdue items are going to show up here on the very left. So just something to keep in mind if you're setting up a item list card in that Kanban view. In addition, we also, I'm going to come over to the lists here, and then it looks like somebody has a question, so I'm going to take a look at that here in just a second. Jumping over to lists, we now have an option to filter down by chart types. We were talking about charts earlier. If I come into the filter, I'm going to pick a specific filter down here underneath the specialized category for chart type. So what this is going to allow you to do is if you want to run a custom filter list and quickly find all of your bar line charts or bowling charts or Pareto charts or threshold charts, you now have the ability to run that filter. So I could come in here and say, hey, I want all of my bowling charts, for example. Go ahead, save and apply, and now that's just going to show me all of the bowling charts that I have in the system. Keep an eye out on our next release. We're also going to add a column option so that if you have a list of charts and you want to see a column of what chart type that is coming soon. All right, let me pull up this question here. Looks like someone's having an issue receiving message when attempting to access via mobile submission not currently enabled. How do I enable mode? Okay, that is a manual. That's something that I will forward on over to our support team, and we will go ahead and take a look at why you are not able to access the templates needed on the mobile app for you. So I will make sure to address that as soon as we hop off this webinar. All right, where were we? Oh, we are talking reports now. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the reporting section, and I am proud to introduce activity goals and impact goals. So this new feature is going to be visualized on your activity over time as well as your impact over time. Don't worry, I'll come back into these reports so we can take a more in-depth look at that. But specifically, this new feature gives you the ability to set goals for improvement submissions and or financial impact at any level of the organization, and then you'll be able to visualize them here in the reports area. So this can help increase long-term vision, short-term motivation, as well as ensure the success of your improvement culture. So the functionality of this new feature is actually very similar to the target line that was once available on the item curve report. If I come back over to the item curve report, you'll notice that there's no longer that little gear icon here where you can set that up. With the introduction of the activity goals and impact goals, we actually removed the target line functionality from the item curve. So any of your previously set targets are no longer going to be displayed here. Instead, what you're going to want to do to set this up is head over to your network. So if I jump into the admin section here and we go over to our network, this is where you're going to be able to configure an activity and or impact goal at any of your locations. So for example, if we wanted to go at the very top level, our ABC Enterprise, this is your organization here. If I go ahead and hit the little edit icon, we have a whole bunch of monthly goals that we've actually set up here. So this is where you're going to configure these. If you're setting up a new goal, you'll hit the plus sign here. You'll determine what the type is. So if you're looking to set up a goal around improvement submissions, or if you're looking to set up a goal based on financial impact, you'll first choose that type. Then you'll be able to decide if you want to set that up at location and below or just at a specific location. So for example, in this case, it might be best practice if I'm at the very top level of that ABC Enterprise and I want to have everyone within my organization have a goal for maybe 1,000 improvements that are submitted in a month, I can set that up here at the location and below goal. Now, if I wanted to be more specific and maybe came back and said, hey, actually, I want to set up a goal specifically within our engineering. In that case, I would come in here and I would edit that and I'd set up a goal and say, hey, just at engineering, let's have 20 improvements that I want to have submitted per month, okay? You can use both, but that's typically how most people are going to take advantage of the location and below goal versus the location goal. Once you have chosen the type as well as the location and below versus location, then you're just going to want to determine when you want this goal to start and when you want the goal to end. So maybe I want to have this start, let's have it start for the second half of 2019. We'll say it should start here June 1st and have that end at the end of the year. And we can go ahead and save that. Now, in terms of visualizing this, if we go ahead and jump back into the report section, we can configure the activity goal, which is the improvement counts. That's going to be visible on this activity over time report. Keep in mind that it is specifically for improvements. So when I come to this activity over time, by default, I don't see that goal line. So what I need to do is go ahead and select improvements. Now I can see the goal line here in gold. And if you are wanting to see the best visualization of that goal line, I would recommend coming in and putting in a custom date range for the dates that you set up on that goal, right? So we had said June 1st through, for example, what's going to be the end of December. Now, for the impact goal, that is going to be seen on the impact over time report. So I'll come over to the impact over time. And so you'll see that our goal is being shown here. And that goal can be specific to total financial impact. It could be more specifically a cost savings or revenue generation. All of that can be set up at that network level. All right, sticking with the theme of reports, I'm going to come back actually to the activity over time report. And you'll notice that there is a new toggle now for this report for on time. Okay, so be on the lookout for that enhanced view. This is going to show items that have been or are on track to be completed on time. So let's switch over to the on time here. So anything in green that represents on time, this is determined as the item has been completed before or on its scheduled due date, or if the item is still in active status and it has yet to surpass the current item's due date. Okay, so that is going to be anything in active and on time. Not on time, what we see here is going to be determined as your item was completed after its due date, or if the item is currently in an overdue status based on today's date. Okay, so ideally, this can help identify when and where work is consistently falling overdue, to encourage you to be able to set more realistic due dates on your items. Okay, this is an interactable report, so I can click in and see, for example, all of these 285 on-time items here in the system. And then if we were to come back to the report, you'll see that you can also use a reference date of created, start, due, or complete. So for example, if I was to select due here, I can see, of those items that were due in, for example, July 2019, how many of those are on time versus not on time. Okay. This report can be added to a card on a board. So if you're over in the board section and you want to visualize that on a board, go ahead and hit the little plus sign, select your report here, choose the activity over time, and then you'll see the on time toggle available, so you can set up all of your filters, everything you need here, and then visualize that card on your board. All right, I realize that we are a few minutes over. We're going to now talk admin enhancements, and then we're going to get a little bit into milestone enhancements. So for all of our admins, please stay on the line, and for anybody with the milestones add-on module, we have some exciting things to show to you as well. So over in the admin section, we have now set up the ability to limit your time savings people based on network location. So if you are using time savings people for your time savings impact type, that's going to be the time savings people will show up underneath organization here in the admin area. And so the way that I simply set it up was I had an engineer, I had a nurse, and if I come in here and select edit, you'll notice that there is now this option for locations. So what this is going to mean is that when a user is actually going in and recording any sort of time savings impact and then choose a specific time savings person, they are only going to have access to select a time savings person that matches a location that they have insight into, right? So if it is if they can see the time savings person based on their specific location, the originating location or responsible location, they'll be able to choose that. So the way I have it set up here is nurse will show up if I am in the KaiNexus support location, which I am. Engineer will only show up if I'm in the engineering location, which I'm not. So if we go in and resolve, for example, let's, where's that move the trash can we created earlier? Move the rash can, move trash can. So if I want to go ahead and, oh, looks like we don't have resolution on this idea. Let's try another one. Is this the same one? Yeah, all right. Let's do, for example, oh, of course, searching test in a testing environment. That is always a fun time. All right, so here on this A3, we have resolution enabled. So let's submit a resolution. And we'll do employee time savings here. I'm gonna add an amount, and we'll see when I'm using the time savings people, if I wanna choose a specific person, I only have the ability to select nurse here, right? Because I'm not in that engineering location. So this allows you to restrict those specific time savings people that show up based on those locations that you've included. Next thing that we're gonna talk about is restricting weighted scores by role. So if we come back into the admin area, for those of you who are utilizing the weighted scores feature on your templates, there's now going to be a new configuration option where you'll see that you must have a required role in order to be able to fill out those particular weighted attributes. So think of a use case as maybe you have a specific CI committee that is responsible for going into projects or improvements and determining what that specific priority is going to be based on filling out those weighted attributes. You can give them a specific role in the system, and then only they would be able to go in and fill out those particular scores. So I believe the way that I have it set up in here is I'm going to use the benefit and effort score. So the way I set up my benefit score is I have to have a CE account manager role. And for my effort score, I have to have a CI leader role. So right now I have roles for support, and I have that CEAM. So on the particular item where that benefit score shows up, I'll actually be able to fill that out, but I won't be able to fill out an effort score. So I'm going to pull up an item here. Organize the coffee area. So here on this particular idea, we have a section for those weighted scores. Now the benefit score, we'll see I'll be able to click into, and I can actually fill out those weighted attributes to determine that score. However, for the effort score, because I don't have that role, this is not something that I'll be able to come in and mess around with those values. So again, a use case around this is if you have a CI steering committee that is responsible for actually going in and filling out those particular scores, you can now give them a role and then restrict that role so that only they will be able to go in and define that criteria. All right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about milestones. So number of milestone enhancements that were introduced in our 2.3.5 release. First thing that I'm gonna do is let's create a, what's this under? We're gonna do an A3 version 2 here. Test A3 V2. All right, so what I wanna show specifically on this template is milestones are now made ready or activation tied to an attribute value, okay? So let me come in here, I'm gonna go ahead and make some of these ready for approval, and I'm going to sign off on those. So let's approve these guys. One of the things that I'll show as well is that we can now require a note to be populated. For example, if you select not approved here on this PMO approval, you'll see that the note is required. So if this is something that you guys want to have set up, just let us know. We can set that up on the back end for you. Let's approve these milestones, and then coming back to that milestone ready activation tied to an attribute value. If we come over to the project details, we're going to have some strategic initiatives here that if I come in and select, for example, Maybe I want to select quality and finance here. Now, based on these values that I've selected, if I go ahead now and save, what that's going to do is it's going to introduce this optional quality approval milestone that now needs to be signed off, and it's also made that financial approval milestone ready for approval as well. So if you have a specific field that you want to tie to a milestone being activated, we can now set that up in KaiNexus. In addition, any sort of updates that you're doing within your milestones are now going to count as an action for your last updated date. That wasn't the case before, so any changes to milestones will adjust that as well. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is we also now have set it up so that milestone approver roles are going to work in conjunction with your role-based permissions. So what does that mean? Right now, the way that milestones work is that you have to have a specific system role in order to be able to approve those milestones. So what happens if I am only supposed to be approving milestones on projects that are within my location and that I am working on? Now what we can do is we can set it up that you must have edit permission on the item in order to approve the milestone. So what this would do is it would essentially eliminate the ability for someone with that permission to go approve a milestone on a project that they are not a team member on. Okay, so now we can put those particular restrictions in place. I don't have an example for that here, but if you are interested in either setting up that milestone approval permission role based on edit access, or with the milestones being made ready or active based on an attribute value, please reach out to your CE lead and we can help set that up on the back end for you. All right, we went through quite a bit of material. We are quite a bit over. I don't have Banna here keeping me on time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat box. I'd be happy to stick around for a little bit more and answer those. Otherwise, that wraps up everything that I had on our agenda for today. So thank you for the time. I hope these webinars are valuable. Certainly appreciate your feedback. Please reach out if you have any OIs on how we can make these better. But definitely be sure to sign up for our next Banna Rippy show. Hopefully we have Banna back. We're going to be hosting that towards the end of July. Our next 2.3.6 release is planned for right around that time. So most likely that will be our topic of choice. If you want to check out all of our webinars from this year and last year, head over to kainexus.com/webinars/office-hours to check out all of that content that we have here. If you haven't done so already, be sure to register for KaiNexicon 2019, hosted here in Austin, Texas, September 24th through 25th. Continuous music, drinks, food, and improvement. You would be crazy to miss out on this spectacular event. Who knows, you may even get the chance to meet the hosts of the Banna Rippy Show live in person. I don't know how much those autographs would be worth, but be happy to sign some. If you have any questions or need assistance with configuration of the features you saw here today, again, please reach out to your KaiNexus customer experience lead. In the meantime, we definitely encourage you to check out our support site at support.kainexus.com. Taking a look at some questions that have come through. Got a question here from Maria. Can you create a task and assign it in one stroke? Yeah, that's a great question, Maria. Let me show you exactly how that looks in KaiNexus. So if I go ahead and let's create a standard work template. So this is a task type here. If I go ahead and create this task, I can fill out all of the information that I need here. So here's my task number 1. Fill out my description, any other information that I need to. Now down in the status and team section is where you're going to be able to create the task and then assign it all in one swoop. So right now, if I was to create it, it would put it in a new status, which means we haven't put our dates on the item. We haven't put that team in place. So if you want to go ahead and get that task assigned right here from the create window, click on active. You'll choose the due date that you want that task due. So maybe I say it's due by the end of next week. And then now I can also choose who that responsible person is going to be. So what this is going to do is it's going to directly now assign this task out in an active status, so you don't have to create the task and then go into it and assign it that way. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. If I go ahead and create this now, we'll see that we'll have that task created, and if I click into the task, it'll be in an active status with our team and our dates in place. All right, doesn't look like any other questions came through. So thank you again, everyone, for the time. My name is Ryan Rippey, and you stay classy, fellow KaiNexperts.